Hello, my name is Steve Lang. I'm a developer technology specialist at Microsoft based in Colorado, USA. In this session, we'll discuss how to get you and your team up and running with Visual Studio Online. So what is Visual Studio Online anyways? VSO, as it's called, is your development hub in the cloud. It's based on the capabilities of Team Foundation Server with some added cloud services. It's a service that lets you quickly and easily begin leveraging Microsoft's ALM tooling without having to install or configure a single server because it runs on Microsoft's cloud infrastructure. VSO supports a variety of platforms and languages and connects to Visual Studio, Eclipse, Xcode, Git clients, or pretty much any other development tool. Now, it's important to note that there are a few key differences between the established on-premise Team Foundation Server and Visual Studio Online. First, with VSO, you cannot currently customize process templates. This means you use a process template as is. You can't create custom work item types, state transition workflows, custom fields, etc. Also with VSO, there isn't currently an integration point with SharePoint, so you won't automatically get a team site set up for you when creating your projects. Visual Studio Online also currently does not support SQL reporting and analysis services. So if you've used TFS in the past, the SSRS reports that you may have used will not be available. The hosted build controller in VSO works quite well, albeit slightly differently than the traditional build controller. If you would like to go ahead and use your own build controller, you can certainly do so and can wire that up to talk to your VSO account. So while there are a few elements that are different with Visual Studio Online today, Visual Studio is great in that infrastructure and maintenance is taken care of for you. So enough of that, let's get started. First, you need to have a Microsoft account, formerly known as a Live ID. Once you have one, you can create your Visual Studio Online account. If you have an active MSDN subscription, it may be easiest to go ahead and use that Microsoft account that's associated with your MSDN subscription. So as you can see, I'm already signed in with my Microsoft account, and this account happens to be the same one that's associated with my MSDN subscription. Now I'm going to go ahead and get started by clicking on Get Started, and this will take me to the Create Visual Studio Online account page. Now, real quickly, each Visual Studio Online account comes with 5 free users. As your team expands or your needs grow, mix and match these user plans and resources to give each user what they need. MSDN subscribers are free as well and do not count against the 5 free users you get out of the box. You can also buy user licenses for Visual Studio Online, coming in either basic, professional, or advanced plans. Each type of plan includes access to different capabilities in Visual Studio Online, such as portfolio backlogs, team rooms, stakeholder feedback management, and work item chart authoring. So anyways, back to creating your VSO account. Pretty much all you need to do is provide it an account name, and it will provision a URL for you, which looks like accountname.visualstudio.com. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Call this Flashcast 2014. Click on Create Account. Let it churn for a second. And boom, just like that, now I have my Visual Studio Online or VSO account provisioned for me, and it's already ready for me to create my first project. So let's go ahead and create this first project. This is going to create what's called a team project, and a team project is pretty much your base container for any related project work. You can have quite a few team projects in your Visual Studio Online account. So creating team project is really easy, especially the first one, because it's already prompting me to do so. So first I need to choose a name. I'll call it Flashcast 1. I can give it a description if I want to. And then I have to choose my version control options. I can choose either to use TFVC or Team Foundation version control, or I can use Git. TFVC is the standard version control system that's been a part of Team Foundation Server since its initial release. It's a centralized controlled system that gives users a single version of a file at a time, and it's great for teams that need control over access permissions or need to version very large code bases. Git is a DVCS or distributed version control system that has much more recently been supported. its model provides users with an entire local copy of the version control repository. So when users check in or commit in Git speak, the commit is local, so it's very fast. Commits are later pushed or merged up to a master repository. So for this demo, I'll just choose TFVC. And the next thing I need to choose is my process template. A process template is effectively a definition of a process that will embed itself into your project. You'll see what you can choose from right here. So I can choose a Scrum, Agile, or CMMI process improvement template. So I'm going to go ahead and choose Use Scrum. I'll hit Create Project. And after about 30 seconds to a minute, depending, you'll have your project created for you. So now I can see I'm already connected to my project. I'm connected to FlashCast 1, and it gives me a bunch of how-tos to kind of help me get started real quickly. So now once we have our project set up, we can choose which direction we want to go. There are a couple things I can do first, depending on my priorities. I could get my code into source control so I can start developing code right away, or I could get my backlog set up so I could begin tracking mine or my team's work. Or lastly, I could add some users to my VSO account. For me, I'm going to get some code put into source control first. A nice, easy way for me to connect my VSO project to my Visual Studio client is to click Open Visual Studio. So I'll click that here. It'll go ahead and automatically launch Visual Studio. And if you look over to the right, it automatically connects me to my FlashCast 1 project. What I need to do here is configure my workspace. So this is basically telling TFS where to put my code in and out of. I'm going to go ahead and just choose this default workspace here. Click Map and Get. Now that my workspace is mapped, I can go ahead and upload some code. I'm going to start from scratch. I'm going to use a nice little shortcut here and click New to create a new solution. Let's go ahead and just create a simple class library just so I have something. I'll call it class library 1. Go ahead and create the class library project for me. There we go. What it is not necessarily important. It's more just so you can see how it looks. And when I'm ready, I'll go ahead and commit this. Now I can go ahead and send this up to Visual Studio a couple different ways. I can right click here, say check in, and that'll take me to my pending changes dialog, or I could have just chosen to go to pending changes directly. Go ahead and hit check in. And just like that, I've checked in my first base of code into Visual Studio Online. And I can verify this by going back to my VSO project and click on code. I can already see there's my class library 1 with all my code in it, and there's my class1.cs file. So that's a nice simple way just to get your code up into your VSO account. Let's now take a look at how to start working with our backlog. So your backlog basically consists of two things: what you're going to do and when you're going to do it. So let's first set up the when part by configuring our schedule. To do that, I go over here and I'm going to click on Configure Schedule and Iterations. That'll pop open this iterations dialog, and by default it lists all these this hierarchy of iterations for you to go ahead and leverage. Now you can delete these if you want, create your own iteration schedule. Just to keep things simple, I'm going to stick with this sort of breakdown. So let's go ahead and just configure sprint 1. Now all you have to do is specify a start and end date for your sprints, and TFS will then know how to figure out your work available in terms of your capacity and also what sprint you're currently working in. So let's set dates here, and today is June 2nd. Let's go ahead and specify that we're going to have a 2-week sprint. So I set the start date as June 2nd, the end date is June 13th. Hit save and close, and now I've got that one set up. I can go ahead and configure other ones if I want to, but here's all I really need to worry about for right now. So I'll hit close, and now I've got iteration set up. So if I refresh this screen, you'll see now it believes sprint 1 is the current sprint, and it's showing here's the date range for that current sprint. Now that we've told Visual Studio Online about our schedule, let's actually get a couple of things on the backlog. And that's very simple too. Just go click on Backlog, and this will take me to my product backlog. Now, if you remember, this FlashCast 1 team project I created was created using the Scrum template. So out of the box, your Scrum template will allow either a product backlog item or a PBI or a bug to go onto your product backlog. So let's go ahead and add a couple things here. I'm going to keep them very generic. Make number 1. And number 2, just so we have a couple things there. It's as simple as that. You can enter a basic title, hit add, and it'll put it on your backlog. Now, of course, you can double click on these backlog items and enter a lot more details, such as maybe a level of effort, who's assigned to, and add tags as well. So I can do that. I'll do that on the second one. I'll just add another level of effort for this. And organizing is simple. You can simply drag and drop and reorder the priority of your product backlog items. You can also look at these on a Kanban board and adjust them this way as well. And you see your cumulative flow diagram begins to take shape. And when you're ready to assign these, actually put these into scope of the current sprint, it's a simple matter of drag and drop into the sprint to which they're assigned. I'm going to go ahead and put this into sprint 1. And now you'll see is automatically set the iteration path to release 1 sprint 1, which means now it's been assigned to this current sprint. So I'll go click on sprint 1 just to see what that looks like. Now, of course, in this example, it's a very simple, very empty backlog, but I have my product backlog item on my sprint backlog, and I can actually start to break out some tasks from this. It's just by hitting the plus button. Let's do that. Create another one. And now I've got 2 items broken out from this product backlog item to show that how this work is actually going to get done. Now, if you remember, we set start and end dates, and that's how this determines up here. You have 10 work days remaining on the sprint, and there's 6 hours of work has been assigned to my team by this 6 hours of remaining work for each of these tasks. If you want to get a little more detail on that work details tab on the right, you can click on capacity. And what this will do is for each team member you've added to this project, you can specify a projected capacity per day that this person can dedicate to this sprint. So if I say myself, I can spend 2 hours a day on this. When I hit save, you'll see now it's updated my work details to show that yes, 6 hours of work has been assigned to the team, and that team has 20 hours of capacity across this rest of the sprint. So we're well within the boundaries of what will work for us. Last thing I'll show you here is you also have a task board, and task board is really great for visualizing work as it moves across the dial. So here I can easily assign work, I can adjust work remaining, and drag and drop to show status updates. So there you have it. So now we also have our backlog, both from a product backlog view and our sprint backlog view. So now we have code uploaded and our backlog set up. Let's get this thing to actually build. So I'm going to go ahead and set up a basic continuous integration build so that my code is built every time a check-in occurs. And I'll be using the hosted build controller that's included with Visual Studio Online. To set up my build, I'm going to go ahead and choose Open Visual Studio. I'm going to set it up through Visual Studio. And the first thing I'll do once I'm connected to my FlashCast 1 project is I'll go ahead and go over to Builds. And I will select New Build Definition. And I'll give it a name. We'll call this Sample FlashCast CI build. For my trigger, I'm going to tell it to build continuously. So build at each check-in. Go down to build defaults, and here's where I'll specify that I want to use the hosted build controller. And I can choose where I want to put the output when I'm done. I'm going to go ahead and tell it, put it back into source control so I can access it that way. And for process, now I just have to tell it what I actually want it to build. So I'm going to go ahead and go back out to source control, go to my class library 1, choose that solution. And now I've got that. save, and now this is ready to be built. So let's go ahead and get this built. So I'm going to go ahead and go to, let's go back to home here, open up my solution. And let's make a small, silly change to it. Let's just call this a I won't even have it do anything. Let's go ahead and check this in. And hit check in. And now what I should see, if I go back over to builds, I'll see under my builds that sample flashcast CI number 1 has been kicked off. So it's currently in queue. So what this means is that it is currently provisioning a build environment up in Visual Studio Online and is getting ready to build. So you can see now it actually is in the process of building. And now you can see the build is finished. The build ran for 68 seconds. I paused the recording a little bit so you don't have to watch it for the entire 68 seconds. So it took just over a minute to build, and I could see that it actually did complete building. I can view the log file, I can look at the request. And to verify that it's there, I can go ahead and go back to Visual Studio Online, go to code. I can see now that the drop is there, so there's my actual binary output. So there's my DLL file that was created as part of my build. I can also view my builds from Visual Studio Online by looking at the build tab. So I can see here's that build that just ran. Double click on that and I can see the same information. So that's how you set up a very simple build using Visual Studio Online. Now the last thing we'll talk about in this session is how to add additional team members to this project so that you can start to contribute together as a team. To do that, I'm going to click on this Manage link right here under Members because as you can see, I'm currently the only member of this project. So by clicking on that, I can hit the Add button. It'll add a new user, and I can start typing in the email address of the person I want to add. So in this case, I'll just add a sample user. Hit Save Changes. That'll add the person into the team project, into the Visual Studio account as access, and it will send them an email inviting them to come join this project. So the last thing I want to mention is an important note around adding team members to this project. Because now that Visual Studio Online is a licensed product, you need to make sure that everyone is assigned the appropriate license. To do that, as the administrator, you can go to the homepage of your VSO account, click on Users, and you'll see your users listed here. And you can assign them the appropriate license. As I mentioned in the beginning of the session, that your Visual Studio Online account comes with 5 free basic licenses, and you can add other basic licenses or advanced licenses or professional licenses on a monthly subscription. What also I mentioned is that any active MSDN subscriber is also granted full rights into a Visual Studio Online account. So you can see that here with my user, added as VS Ultimate with MSDN, and this Dave developer that I just added is assigned a basic license. I can go and make those adjustments if Dave developer is an MSDN subscriber. I can click on Edit for his, set this to eligible MSDN subscriber, and hit Save. And what that will do is it'll validate that he is one the next time he signs in. If not, he'll be reverted back to a basic license. So that's it. You've seen how to sign up for a VSO account, create a project, add code, set up a build, and manage users. Thanks for watching. I hope you take advantage of Visual Studio Online for yourself or your organization.